man. Welcome back to the Platform Engineering Show, one of my favorite podcasts. It's one of my favorites because my co-host is my friend Luca Galante. Luca is in Sicily today. You know, part of doing this show is just to keep tabs on where Luca is in the world. So it's good to see you, Luca. How have you been, man?
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Alan. I'm great. Sicily, I'm probably gaining like 1 kilo a week, like solid.
Oh boy.
Yeah, like literally
Really?
yesterday I went to like see this house that I'm checking out, and like literally next door there's this guy that's making fresh ricotta cheese, and it's like 9 a.m. and he's like, no, you should try. You need to try, and it's like it's still warm from the milk because it like milked the cow that morning, and it's like,
Oh,
you
God.
need to try. You need to try it right now, and so it just gives me like a spoon, and I'm just like 9 a.m. I'm eating like an entire ricotta cheese. And that's just like, it's like this, constantly, like people just come around. It's always food. People just just feed you all the time. It's the best food, but it's like, it's hard to stay strict on the diet.
So I got to tell you, when we went to Sicily, and like you, I did a lot of, the street food in Palermo, just the arancini, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can live on those, but but yet we came home and we didn't gain any weight. Maybe it's because we were walking so much, but the food is so healthy there. Especially you live in Europe, so you're used to that. In the U.S., we don't. Our food is it's not all non-GMO. It's not all organic. It's not all as natural. It's a lot more processed.
A lot more poisoned. Like I have a lot of friends. It's not the first time I hear this. I have a lot of friends in the US. Every time they come, right, there's like, they come to the same thing like you. It's like, man, I'm eating gelato all the time. I'm eating like all this pasta, which is all carbs, like pizza. Like, how is it that I'm losing weight? And it's just,
it's the truth. Not only that, this isn't really anything to do with platform engineering, but I have friends who are like, here in the US, they're gluten intolerant. They don't have celiac, but they can't really handle gluten. But yet they go to Italy and they have, the good semolina pasta there.
Yeah.
They don't have any gluten problem with it. So it's something about the way the fertilizers they're using, the insecticides, something
entire supply chain. Yeah. Exactly.
It's true.
It's very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Mm.
Yep. Anyway, but we could talk about Italian food, but Stanley Tucci already did a great series on that.
He's great. He's so great. And it's like the way he does it is,
absolutely. That's an amazing. My wife and I watch that over and over again. We make notes really good when we go visit. But we want to talk today about platform engineering, right? And we're at sort of a little intersection here. We just finished cloud native, which is a big platform engineering of, it's not all platform engineering, but platform engineering was a major player this year. Yep. I think it was the largest, not 0 day, they don't call it, but the mini conference day with the like Tuesday of KubeCon week, they all have all those little conferences. I heard the platform engineering was the biggest one of the ones there. We've got Platform Con coming up in just about 2 months.
Yeah.
Right. So much going on in this space, but there's also a lot going on with the evolution of platform engineering, right? Like everything else, I think in life is things go from simple and they get a little more complex, right? As you layer in stuff. And that's happening in platform engineering. You can't just be a platform engineer. Well, you can, but there's kind of specializations that are subspecials, popping up. Yes. Luca, you've got your thumb on the community. What are you seeing?
Yeah, exactly. I think you framed it really, really well. I think we're at an inflection point right now where, platform engineering is moving past kind of this core platform engineer persona, which first defined themselves as kind of like different from, DevOps, SRE, infra, cloud ops, right? And it's like, well, platform engineers, and we spoke about this before. It's a lot about this like product mindset and about, treating your customer, your developers as customers, and so on. And so that was kind of like the first step of like building, I think, this identity. I think the interesting thing that we're seeing in the community now is that that identity is now start like growing and bifurcating into some more specialized identities, sub identities, if you will, especially as platform engineering is really becoming this new DevOps, is really becoming this new kind of like enterprise IT layer that's sort of like sucking in people from all sorts of walks of life, from data engineers to observability people, security teams, and so on. And everybody, and we see like one of the fastest growing segments in the community is data engineers. And so clearly like people are trying to figure out, okay, what can this platform engineering thing do for me? And the other way around, it's like, okay, we are seeing top performing engineering organizations are already thinking of this as one unified layer of, data, because I think like in most organizations it's still very siloed of, you have data and ML stuff over here. And of course, with all the AI craze that we talked about yesterday, it's growing very fast, but it's still kind of like in this bubble. And then there's all the, traditional kind of like infrastructure DevOps side of things over here, right? But of course, I think what we see is top performing orgs already think of it as just like one unified layer because, of course, why wouldn't you? It's just like all converging into the same thing, and kind of just like one platform that serves different types of users, from app devs to data scientists and MLIS users, all the way to eventually more abstracted, any business user, really, right? And so I think as part of that, people are trying to figure out, okay, how does, data engineering, for example, and platform engineering combine? And what we're seeing is the emergence of this like sub-specializations around data platform engineering and security platform engineering and DevX platform engineering, infrastructure platform engineering, and so on. And I think that's very, very interesting. And in fact, we're restructuring the way we sort of like organize the content from a community standpoint as well, along these lines of these different streams and these different personas.
I agree. But as we were talking off camera, I saw a similar development in the DevOps space over the years, right? Where you used to have, when it first started, everyone wanted to hire a DevOps engineer, even though no one really knew what was a DevOps engineer. Is that someone who worked on Chef and Puppet? Is that someone who did Jenkins? Or is, later on, was that someone doing GitOps? And then, like, as it matures, you start realizing it's very hard to be a jack of all trades, right? Master of none. There are specialties that you do. You mentioned security. So as a security person, it's always the same story. Sooner or later, security gets involved. Usually later than sooner, unfortunately.
Yes.
But you think security is coming in now and making an appearance in platform engineering?
Yeah. 100%, and we see people like Checkmarks and like I've been talking a lot to like ChainGuard and like a bunch of others that are like really looking at this and they're realizing, okay, platform teams are, from a vendor standpoint are, at the very, in most cases becoming like a core persona, and at the very least, they're like heavy influencers on the budget, right? Around this like security tooling. And I think, it's interesting because I've always thought that, to your point, security tends to get always involved, sometimes too late, often too late. And often it has this like blocking role, right? Of like, no, like actually we can't really do this. It's not secure, yada, yada. Which totally makes sense. I think the interesting thing that I've seen a lot of times when it comes to platform engineering is that when a platform is well designed, actually security teams not only don't block it, but actually they kind of like quickly become like champions in favor of it, because they're like, hold on a second. You're telling me that this, again, if we can get more into the details, but really, if you design a platform well with like a proper backend, really well thought out sort of, golden paths, effectively what you're doing is, developers can move faster, which is what everyone else finds sexy, without breaking things, which is what security teams find sexy. And so not only like, I think not only that, if you take that a step further, you realize that a well-designed platform actually is a sort of like automatic enforcing engine that drives security by design across your teams, across your workflows, and it really, and it really benefits everybody that's involved. So I think that's the interesting thing of like the intersection of security and platform engineering, where really, I think from the get-go, even like 2-3 years ago, before this like security platform engineer was a thing, or that's now starting to emerge, it already, I think, was a very natural fit. And now it's only getting more obvious, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned ChainGuard. I don't know if you saw, they announced today a $356 million D round.
Today.
Oh, wow. The day we're recording this. I don't even remember what date it is.
23rd of April.
April 23rd. April 23rd. $356 million round D. That's a huge amount of money in today's world. So clearly, they're on to something there. But you mentioned that they're calling them security platform engineers, right? This has always been a problem that plagues security, is that the security people, security people deeply care about security, right? And we tend to create tools and processes that if you're a security person, it makes a lot of sense, right? We understand from a compliance point of view and from a best practices point of view why you do this.
Yes.
I think the problem we run into is whether we're talking about developers or DevOps people or ops people or maybe even platform engineers, they look at it and say, why? You're just slowing things down. This makes no sense. I don't see the connection.
Yeah.
How are we bridging that in platform engineering, Luca? Is it by having the security people as a platform engineer? Is it by educating the platform engineers and they become security platform engineers? But the security people are, in other words, the security people aren't becoming platform engineers. The platform engineers are becoming more security aware.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great question. And exactly, like what we're seeing is like, as platform engineering is maturing and platform teams are maturing in their practice, they go beyond the, everything I care about is, building a delightful developer experience and making developer faster. But they start realizing, okay, what are the second, derivatives of this, right? Okay, I need to worry about, all the security. And of course, it's not like that they weren't thinking at all about it before, but they're maturing in their approach to it. And I think like a big part of that is also taking it step by step, right? Like as you roll out a first platform to your developers, and we talked before about the importance of minimum viable platforms, and taking this like typical product management approach of like starting small, getting early wins, and then iterating from there. In the early phase, security usually is less important, and it should be, because if you need to make an MVP that's like ultra secure and ready to cover all the possible edge cases in production, you're not doing an MVP, and it's going to take you forever, right? So, and in general, like internal developer platforms at the beginning, when they're nascent, they're really focused more on dev and staging, right, as environments. Then as they mature, right, you get to production, and then of course you need to be, sort of like bulletproof and really solid on all security fronts, right? And I think to your point, yes, I think I really see this like sort of like double path, right? Like on the one hand is platform teams becoming more security aware and growing, and this is why we're now like, we see this emergence of the security platform engineering as a sub practice. And by the way, this might seem like esoteric terms that we just come up with, but like if you look at, for example, infrastructure platform engineering, which is slightly more established, right? It's been around for like 6 to 12 months top. It's already in 7 different hype cycles from Gartner, right? So these are things that like seem like small differences, but then they really become like established practices. And you're already starting to see a lot of people that are calling themselves DevX platform engineers and infrastructure platform engineers, because that's like 12 months ago, people started talking about it. Now we're starting to talk about reliability platform engineering and security platform engineering. I can guarantee you in 12 months from now, you'll see that on LinkedIn profiles, right? That's just like as a side note. But I think to answer your question, I think the other way that you see this conversion is honestly just by following best practice, right? So beyond just the maturation and the evolution of the people working in platform teams is also, well, like, look, actually, if you design a well-designed platform, right, which is beyond just like, hey, let me do like some front end, let me do now some LLM because it's the latest cool thing, and just plug it on top of the existing workflows, but actually design the platform from the ground up, which means starting from the back end and really have a well-designed back end with, good business logic, good RBAC, role-based access control, and all these things built in. Then you realize that actually security is again a second derivative, but it's a second derivative that's just automatically enforced by the platform by default, right? Across all these different workflows. And so I think those two things, like more awareness by the actual people doing platform engineering and then following best practice, is ultimately how you see security and platform engineering converging as disciplines.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Observability. I don't know if you saw this, but some folks are starting to reach out to us now. Observability is a thing, obviously, right? I mean, open telemetry, I think, is the second biggest CNCF project. There's a lot of buzz around observability. So observability, it's really becoming like a platform engineering, like DevOps, like SRE. It's becoming a singularity, if you will, right? Its own thing, not part of other things. But yet, as you know, it's to me, it's a part of DevOps. To me, it's a part of platform engineering. To me, it's a part of security, right? Yeah. How do you think that plays out, Luca? Specifically, the platform.
Yeah, observability is super interesting to me because for a few reasons. One, I totally agree with you. Like, I think it's clearly still just like a subset of, DevOps, platform engineering. And I think most people look at it that way. Yes, it's grown very, very fast. And, you have massive companies like Datadog and so on. Like, so clearly it's its own niche, but it's a very, very big niche. And, if you go to a place like KubeCon, probably the biggest booths out there are all like observability folks, right? So and security. So clearly, it has a very valid kind of niche. But I think specifically when it comes to platform engineering, it's very interesting because a huge part of platform engineering, what we discussed before, has been this like front end thing, right? This idea of like, well, building a platform is just like building an application. You have a back end, you have a front end. And we've said before, right, like a lot of platform teams, I think, make the quick mistake of starting from the front end because it's a quick win. And then they figure out, okay, actually now I need to build all this thing. And what we just talked about with security, right? Like if you have like a well-designed platform, you start from the back end. That's where all the security best practices go, all the configuration flows go on the infrastructure side and so on. But the observability is interesting because it's merging very clearly with this like front end layer of the platform, right? And so if we're thinking like portals, right? Like at the end of the day, when we're talking about like platform front ends, we're really talking about portals, right? Things like Backstage, which still has 95% plus market penetration when it comes to portals. They're really the only game in town. You know, but, you know, what do you know? Like Datadog has now launched a portal, right? And there's some other observability vendors that are following suit very quickly. So, and like, of course, it makes sense actually, right? Because again, you think of this like observability vendors, they're like growing really fast, like we said, and they're like owning more and more things. Why wouldn't they own this sort of like portal layer on top of the platform, right? And I think that's another very, very interesting development that we're seeing that I think like we weren't really, you know, thinking about if you go back like 1 or 2 years. I think the vast majority of people are still not thinking about it, but it's happening. And you know, that's kind of like the work that we do in the community is trying to spot these trends and kind of like pinpoint them to people. And that's why there's going to be soon an update to the REFs architectures that have been such a, you know, essential part of the community, of the platform engineering space, and how people think and talk about the platforms that they're building to one another. And so we had this like REFs architectures 1.0, I'd say, that came at Platform Colon 23 2 years ago. And I think by the time Platform Colon 25 comes around in a couple of months, we're going to have the 2.0 version. And I think there's going to be some interesting updates, especially when it comes to the observability plane. So I'll keep it there.
I think we dropped the teaser right there. Yeah. So we don't have a lot of time left, but I've got one observation on observability. All right. I think AI is going to change what we think of as observability, and the players in observability and what we do in observability is going to get turned on its head with AI, with agentic AI, already with generative. I think it's really going to like have observability take off, right? Because you're going to be able to do so much more, so much easier.
Yeah.
And so I would start getting ready your ref architecture 3.0 AI version or something, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah, for sure.
Look, AI is going to do all of these.
The thing is as you know, with AI, for sure, we are seeing an acceleration across all these different things, right? Security is changing, observability is changing, platform is changing, the whole DevX layer is changing, right? And again, like they're merging because it's like, okay, you know, now a developer can not only self-serve infrastructure through an LLM, you know, and this type of stuff, but also can query the system. And so you have this whole like observability layer that's also built into the same interface. So yeah, I definitely see us just working harder and harder just to keep up with how the landscape changes and how best practices evolve accordingly. Yeah.
It's a crazy time, man. It's a crazy time.
Yeah.
Luca, we're about out of time. How long are you going to be in Sicily?
1 more month, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're there. So for our next show, you'll also be in Sicily. Enjoy it. Don't eat
I will be. Maybe I'll show up at Arancino. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would be nice. The triangle ones.
Yeah, exactly. And I did mention Platform.com, by the way. I think by the time this drops, we're gonna have the not so early bird that's gonna be about to expire at the end of April, and we will share like a special community code with the platformengineering.com and TechStrong community. So also stay tuned.
We'll have that out there, and this will air before the end of April. This will probably air. I'm going to guess by the 24th, something like that.
Okay, perfect.
Well, no, the 25th maybe, something like, or the following Monday. But we'll get it out there. Stay tuned for those codes. Luca, enjoy. Don't eat too much there. For now, this is another episode of the Platform Engineering Show. Bye-bye.